Caris Llewellyn had always believed that a place revealed itself best on foot. In the mornings, when her guests at the Bryn Durban Inn were still exploring the mysteries of Welsh breakfast, lava duck laver bread, thick seams of bacon, Caris would tighten her waxed jacket, tuck a notebook into the crook of her elbow, and walk the headlands above Aberthin. She paced the lanes with a surveyor's patience, measuring slopes by the ache in her calves and recording windbreaks by the rustle of gorse. She was an innkeeper because her mother had been one, and because hospitality paid the bills. She was a cartographer because she could not bear to leave empty space unexplored. By summer's end, her desk upstairs was heaped with crude but spirited sketches. Harbours sprawled like bent elbows, paths zigzagging inland toward abandoned slate mines, secret routes to coves where seals basked. A month before the autumn equinox, she finally inked her favourite findings into a single tourist map. She lettered it in both English and Semira, thickened the town's main road with sepia wash, and dabbed watercolour lichens on the cliffs. She added small flourishes, tiny sheep no bigger than rice grains, a puffin perched on the pier rail, because maps, as she told the guests who watched her work, should whisper stories while they direct feet. The first printing ran on the inn's temperamental copy machine, 20 copies at a go. She set them in a basket by reception with a hand-lettered placard. Take 1/Ooch Funhau / suggested donation £2 0 for the Lifeboat Society. Guests took them eagerly, leaving shiny coins that clinked like applause. When a hiker returned, giddy, that the hidden waterfall was exactly where her dotted line said it would be, Caris felt something in her ribs bloom. 3 weeks later, she noticed the first duplication. It appeared on a weather-sheltered sidewall of Green & Sons ironmongery, flaring crimson beneath the street lamp. Someone had reproduced her map, line for line, albeit hastily, in spray paint that ran like blood down the bricks, emphasizing 7 locations with fat circles. The tiniest details had survived: the puffin, the minuscule sheep, even her private signature, CL, placed at the map's edge like a wink. The circles, however, were new. Each bulged around a landmark: St. David's Well, the lighthouse keeper's cottage, the little statue of Owain Glyndwr outside the council office. She should have felt flattered. Instead, an acid unease crept up her throat. It was the audacity, she decided. Copying was one thing, but scrawling her work on a wall invited contempt rather than curiosity. It cheapened the map's romance. That night, wiping the bar while guests savoured Pennerin whiskey, she studied her own original. What connected the circled places? They were certainly photogenic, but then so was most of Aberthin. She shrugged, chalked it up to some graffiti-mad adolescent, and went on pouring shots. 3 nights afterward, the lighthouse reported the theft of its antique brass telescope, a century-old instrument used for ceremonial weather readings. The town grumbled the tourists must have pinched it. Caris frowned. One of the red circles had ringed the lighthouse. When 2 silver offertory platters vanished from St. David's Church that same week, another circled locale. Her unease curdled into alarm. She walked the lanes, tracing the distances between the graffiti circles and the theft sites, her boots scuffing submerged potholes. A pattern unfurled. Graffiti map appears, item disappears, always where a crimson loop glowed. On Saturday evening, she phoned Constable Dylan Hughes. He responded with the patient tone he reserved for mild crises, shell shock from rugby losses. But when he visited the ironmongery wall and recognized her line work, his brows knit. "Someone's using your map as a shopping list," he said. "But why my map?" Caris demanded, hugging her elbows. The coastal wind tore at her braid, sending dark hair lashing like kelp. "Me broadcast it in spray paint. Why not keep the map private?" "Perhaps it's misdirection," Dylan mused. "A dare. Put the plan in plain sight so nobody believes it's a plan." Caris remembered a proverb her grandmother favoured. "What's most visible is easiest to overlook." She shivered. Dylan took photographs, logged statements, and advised her to lock every window at the inn. If the thief copied your map, they may think you have more lying around. That night, she double-checked the cellar, the pantry, her mother's chapel, small office where a dusty till held spare change for the laundry machine. The Bryn Derwin possessed nothing a thief with an eye for antiques would covet. Still she lay awake, mapping connections on the insides of her eyelids, tracing footpaths in imaginary ink. Monday dawned sodden. Mist smothered the town, and the inn's front door groaned as if burdened by secrets. Caris brewed coffee potent enough to raise the drowned. Over it, Dylan delivered news. A pocket watch belonging to the town solicitor had disappeared from its display case at the council office. Another circle fulfilled. Aberfin's paper, the Glass Chronicle, printed a headline big as church bells. Sleek thief mocks town with treasure map. Reporters arrived at Bryn Derwin, hungry for a quote. Caris stood in the doorway in her flour-dusted apron and told them she was cooperating fully with police. She would not, however, cease making maps. "Cartography illuminates," she said, voice steady despite her anger. "If someone chooses to use the light for crooked ends, that's on them." It sounded braver than she felt. After the last reporter left, Caris opened the guest's ledger. Faces flickered behind the names, cyclist sunburned to lobster shell, elderly sisters bent on tracing family graves, the lone travel blogger who typed furiously every dusk. Nothing leapt out. She shut the book, disappointed. That evening, a new graffiti copy surfaced outside the boarded-up cinema, this time in electric blue. Again 7 circles, again perfect mimicry. But one modification jolted her heart. Next to her discreet initials, the vandal had scrawled Diolch, Welsh for thanks. Thanks for what? For the map, the misdirection, the loot? The word tasted like mockery. By then, Dylan had drafted a town-wide appeal for information. Patrols tightened, yet the thief remained vapor. Caris, restless, dissected the 2 graffiti versions. The original showed landmarks in logical walking order. The second rearranged the route, prioritizing sites connected by alleys rather than main roads. It suggested reconnaissance. Whoever redrew the map knew which streets fell dark after midnight, which CCTV cameras had blind spots. A professional, or near enough. She decided to stalk her own instructions. Pulling her hood low, she left the inn at 10, when the rugby broadcast in the lounge hit halftime roars. She carried no torch, letting her eyes adjust to pewter dusk. First the council office, now fitted with new locks. Then the statue, the well, the seawall. Nothing stirred except gulls nesting under slate eaves. At the lighthouse she paused. The tower's door yawned open. Constable Dylan must have left it unlocked while inspecting. Inside, moonlit dust drifted through the vacancy where the telescope had stood. Caris inhaled brine laced with rust, and felt the loss physically, as if a tooth had been torn from the town's grin. A faint clatter upstairs snapped her attention. She froze, listening. Another rustle. She ascended the spiral stair, each iron step moaning. At the lantern room the noise ceased. She swept her phone's weak light. Empty. Perhaps gulls again, or her nerves echoing. Yet as she turned to descend, she noticed fresh chalk marks on the sill. A half-drawn circle, the size of a saucer. An unfinished tag. She crouched, heart lurching. The graffiti artist had been here moments before. Caris retreated, breath ragged. At the base, she almost collided with Dylan, who was jogging up, flashlight in hand. "What are you doing here?" they exclaimed simultaneously. Seeing her pallor, Dylan steadied her shoulder. She explained the chalk. He exclaimed the chalk. "She's escalating," he muttered. "She?" He motioned toward the chalk. Flowing, looped, handwritten like calligraphy. "Perhaps that means nothing," he admitted, "but the lines remind me of a woman's touch." Caris thought of her own fluid penstrokes, or a man with artistic flair. A gust rattled the glass. Dylan exhaled. "Either way, they're bold." Back at the inn, the fireplace gnawed wood. Guests sipped nightcaps, unaware of cliffs in the dark. Caris refused whiskey, choosing clarity instead. Upstairs, she unrolled a fresh sheet of parchment, pinned the printed police bulletin beside it, and began hypothesizing. She listed each theft, each circle, and potential motives: monetary value, historical worth, sentimental allure. The pocket watch, she noted, had little meltdown value but immense story. It had belonged to a soldier lost at Passchendaele. The telescope commemorated Aberfin's earliest mariners. The offertory platters were engraved with birth and death dates of townsfolk. These items, she realized, shared more than price tags. They were vessels of memory. They anchored Aberfin to itself. The thief targeting them was not purely after pawnshop profit. They were after narrative wealth. Why erase a town's memories? To sell to collectors? To punish the town? Or, what if the thief intended to relocate them, curate them elsewhere, draw eyes toward neglect? She chewed her pen tip, remembering how she, too, curated sense of place through maps. A phrase from her university days returned: psychogeography, the emotional resonance of space. At 2 a.m., an idea struck hard enough to jolt her upright. The circles were not random. They formed a constellation. She overlaid tracing paper on her map, pricked each theft location with a pin, and connected them. A skewed pentagon. She rotated it. There, the shape mirrored the outline of Cardigan Bay. Was the thief drawing attention to coastal erosion? To lost history swallowed by tides? It felt far-fetched, yet tantalizing. She slept badly, dreams tangled in spiral staircases. Morning found Constable Dillon in the inn's kitchen, chasing answers over a bacon bap. Caris presented her constellation theory. He listened politely but said connections without evidence were fog. Still, he invited her to the station, where the stolen items, what few had been recovered, were catalogued. None had yet resurfaced. He warned her against solo night excursions. She promised nothing. That afternoon she caught a break. Thomas Morgan, a shy sixth-form student who mopped pub floors for pocket money, sidled up while she arranged pint glasses. "Miss Llewellyn, I seen the new map," he whispered. "You mean the graffiti?" He nodded, freckles blotching deeper. "There's another one, under the railway bridge, not finished. The painter ran off when a lorry passed." "Did you see who?" "Small, hood up, but the can was purple, and the hands looked—" He blushed. "Delicate." Caris's pulse quickened. "Show me." They found the half-done graffiti at dusk. Violet lines curling like vines. The paint was fresh, tacky to touch. Caris memorized every stroke. Curiously, only 4 circles had been drawn before interruption. 3 matched previous spots. The 4th hugged a place her map had never included. Gelly Farm, derelict since foot and mouth. Its stone barn sagged on the edge of moorland, a mile inland. No tourists ventured there. As Thomas biked home, Caris phoned Dillon. He was knee-deep in paperwork, but agreed to meet her after shift. Wind-rattling signposts, she trekked to Gelly Farm alone, against better judgment. Twilight drained colour from heather until landscape looked printed in graphite. The farmhouse loomed, windows black as typewriter keys. Pushing the gate, she stepped into nettles waist-high. Inside the barn, a faint chemical reek hung spray paint. Caris clicked on her phone torch. Beams bounced off corrugated metal, and there wood crates arranged like low tables. Upon them sat the telescope, the pocket watch, the platters, each item cleaned of dust, displayed lovingly beneath battery lanterns. Tags identified them in neat handwriting: lens of longing, timekeeper's heart, offerings of the faithful. Beneath every object lay a postcard-sized reproduction of her map segment, watercoloured with care. Footsteps scuffed behind her. Caris spun. A figure stood in the doorway, small, hood lowered to reveal a heart-shaped face framed by white blonde curls stiff with paint flecks. Green eyes glittered. "I hoped you'd decode the last circle," the woman said, voice soft as tide foam. "Who better than the cartographer?" "Who are you?" Caris asked, breath unsteady. "My name is Elis Vaughan. I used to live here, before disease killed the herd and my family moved inland." She gestured around. "Gelly Farm's history was rotting. Aberfin forgot. So I began curating relics of its memory. By stealing them," Elis's shoulders tightened. "By rescuing. Objects trapped behind glass become invisible. I'm giving them a new narrative. One that connects to this land." She stroked the telescope. "Every item here speaks of seeing, keeping, offering. Themes that birthed this valley." Her gaze cocooned Caris. "Your map understood that language. It charted emotion." "I borrowed it." Caris's anger wavered, buffeted by unexpected kinship. She saw bones of herself in this woman, the urge to make space speak. But theft was theft. "People are frightened," she said quietly. He turned memories into ransom notes. "I left them clues," Eilish protested. "I wanted discovery, participation, pilgrimage. Participation without consent is invasion." Eilish inhaled, fists unclenching. "Perhaps I misjudged. But once the exhibit is complete, I will invite the town. They'll see beauty beyond ownership." Outside, sirens wailed. Dylan's patrol car, Tomas must have tipped them off. Elis's eyes widened. "You called them?" Caris shook her head. "No, but it's time to face what's due." Elis darted past her, but Caris caught her sleeve. "This can still end with dialogue, not prison. Return the items tonight. I'll explain your intent. Eccentric, misguided, but not malicious. Please." Dylan's boots crunched on gravel. Elis searched Caris's face, weighing trust. Finally she nodded. They stepped into the moonlit yard together. Under police torches, Elis raised her hands. Objects gleamed behind her like captive stars. Dylan glanced from thief to innkeeper, bewildered, but asked no immediate questions. He catalogued the scene, cuffed Elis gently, and recited cautions. As he led her to the car, Elis called back, "Maps change as eyes change. Remember that, Caris." The words pinned themselves to Caris's ribs. During statement-taking at the station, Dylan remained calm but inquisitive. Caris relayed everything, emphasizing Elis's curatorial motive. Dylan sighed. "A court may sympathize, or may not, but recovery's what matters for now." Weeks passed. Aberfin buzzed with opinions. Some condemned the vandalism, others romanticized the stunt, likening Elis to Robin Hood with spray cans. The artifacts were returned to their rightful caretakers, albeit after spirited council debate. In the end, a compromise emerged. The museum committee offered a temporary exhibition titled Angles of Aberfin, Objects of Memory, curated by none other than Caris Llewellyn, with Elis Vaughan as consulting artist, pending legal resolution and under watchful supervision. The solicitor, whose watch had been stolen, championed the idea, declaring that history benefited from a whiff of mischief. The opening night drew more visitors than the museum had seen in a decade. Carrie stood beside a glass case where the brass telescope rested, its story panel co-written by Elis, an instrument once used to watch storms, reframed here to invite reflection on what we choose to see or ignore. Children pressed noses to the glass, their breath fogging dreams onto it. Caris's map hung enlarged on the opposite wall. Circles intact, but annotated with narratives rather than routes. Next to her initials, Elis had painted dialogue again, this time with permission, and added a second word, CYDWEI. Collaboration. Late in the evening, Caris found Dylan nursing Punch near the exit. "Not the typical conclusion to a theft case," he remarked. "Maps evolve," she answered, echoing Elis's mantra. Dylan chuckled. "Rumor says you'll publish a new edition of your tourist map." She smiled. "Yes." With an addendum. Gelly Farm Heritage Trail. He lifted his cup. to cartographers and their unintended accomplices. Caris clinked glass, feeling the innermost contours of Abathon settle into sharper relief. Spaces had been shaken, yes, but tremor birthed layers. Standing amid the assembled memories, she realized that her cartography had never been about perfect lines. It was about drawing invitations. Sometimes invitations arrived in graffiti, sometimes in breadcrumbs of missing treasures. Either way, the map was still being drawn, and she ink-stained, inn-keeping, trail-walking remain its keeper. Outside, the sea breathed against the harbour wall, and Aberfin street lamps etched gold paths over wet cobblestones. Somewhere up the hill, a wall still bore faint blue lines, an unfinished map, a scar of curiosity, a reminder that every place is partly written in disappearances. Caris pulled her jacket tighter, already plodding the next morning's walk, the next translation of landscape into story. In her pocket, her pencil waited, eager, forgiving, ready again to seek what lay unnoticed.